Hello and welcome to the first video of Gamescom 2019. Let's just get right to it. I'm joined by my good buddy, Alex Patali. Alex.
I'm doing so well. Gamescom has been great so far, hasn't it, John?
It has. So yeah, we're here to talk about, ray tracing today. And we're going back to Minecraft with the Path Tracer. So we did a video, what was it, a few months ago?
Yeah, it was at the end of April or start of May in 2019.
One of the most fun videos we've done together, I think. That was just going through that House of Madness and seeing how the Path Tracer interacts with light. It's great stuff. And they just announced, I guess this week, that they are officially bringing path tracing to Minecraft proper as an option in the menus.
Yeah, and this is obviously for the Windows 10 version of Minecraft,
Correct.
Which will be, I'm assuming, through DX12 and running on, NVIDIA RTX hardware because they're the ones who support it on PC right now. And they are doing basically one step further than what we've seen in that Minecraft path tracing mod. This is fully path traced. Every single element on the screen, even more so than Quake 2 RTX, is actually run through the path tracer. There is zero rasterization.
First, we should explain what this is. So for the demo at Gamescom, what they did is they kind of built two maps. One with these new assets, new physically based materials, much higher resolution textures, up to 1024 by 1024 for a single block face. That's what we're actually looking at here. There's also another demo we'll see, which is more uses a traditional tile set with sort of normal maps added to improve that. But yeah, so this is the high-res pack, and you're starting to see the benefits with all the light reflections and the color combinations of the bounce lighting, and it's marvelous.
Yeah, this is actually very much so similar to the kind of map I created when I was taking John through the path tracing mod, where kind of showed off various phenomena that can happen when you simulate light, not just emulate its effects. And there's so many, I would say, systemic effects that occur through this just when you're playing it. The various materials here, for example, that show off kind of a different level of reflectivity, depending upon how smooth their surface is. Like here, we're looking at emissive blocks, which have per pixel emissives. John's walking past them now, but every single pixel can be an emissive light on a texture, and it will reflect that across the entire room. And here, like, you can see John kind of getting lost in an area that's full of reflections. You can't tell actually where the ground ends and begins because you have to be really paying attention.
So one of the things they told me actually is like, so for these mirrored surfaces where you can make the material super glossy if you want, they actually sort of added a shader to the surface or like to give it sort of that ripple effect, because they found if it was just a mirrored surface, people really couldn't actually figure out the environment. It was just too crazy. So they actually did change that material to appear sort of that warped glassy effect. But then it's that combination of both the super reflective with the more matte materials. Like the stone here, this is an example of the super high-res textures, even though I'm destroying the level for some reason. But, actually, going here into the darkness, the idea here was actually to see how the light would filter in. And this is kind of a good test of their denoiser.
Yes.
Which is fairly effective, I'd say, actually.
Yeah, noise is really hard in areas that are dark and then have slight prickles of light. That's where the denoiser usually has a lot of trouble, along with fast-moving things. But it's actually holding up pretty well here, and that's one of the interesting things to see. That's like probably where they spent a lot of their work getting it to look right. The way this works is actually very similar to Sonic Ether's mod and how many real rays are sent out that are done in real time, and then it accumulates a number over time.
Right.
So there's already, I think, one bounce that is already done through the path tracer, and then more bounces are accumulated over time.
Exactly.
So you'll see areas get progressively lighter. That's the way the technology works right now because we have hardware limitations, but it's still, because Minecraft is primarily
that texture.
That texture, yeah. These, each Minecraft block is a 1K texture with the normal map here, and it's so high res. But so basically you have two primary bounce. You have the one primary hit and then the secondary bounce afterward, and it's accumulated over time. And as a result of that, and the fact that it is run through a path tracer, which is simulating all this light, there's all these cool secondary effects here. And one of the ones that we'll be seeing throughout the entire demo when you really look around is the fact that transparency, you can see through it.
That's right.
And see reflections on it.
They do transparent reflections, exactly.
And there's transparent shadows too.
Yes.
Any transparent block will also obstruct light, and it will color it by, basically they can change the wavelength or the RGB value of the ray going through it. Well, it's blue because, well, it's reflecting
so
blue light.
Here's their disco room where you can see sort of the per pixel emissives that they're playing with
It
on
looks
the ground
so
there.
good. There's a cool thing where you can see here where, depending upon how glossy a surface is, you can see a bit more, not a little bit more noise, I would say, but a bit more temporal lag.
Exactly.
In it from the denoiser.
It's kind of like a ghosting looking artifact. If you watch carefully, you'll see it when the camera, especially right there.
Yeah, right there on this thing.
Yeah, you see as you move around that material.
These are cool. Really, there's two materials here. There's one that's hammered, and there's one that's like chiseled.
Chiseled, exactly.
Yeah. And you can see the extreme difference in the way they reflect light. But these, since they're both very glossy and the reflectance makes it so that the reflection itself looks like kind of smoothed over. Those are hard to simulate because the rays hit the surface and they don't go off in a low cone angle. Rather, they kind of split off everywhere, and that makes them noisier in general. So the denoiser has a bit more trouble with them.
You can see when I whip the camera around because of the motion, it takes the denoiser a few frames to sort of catch up and accumulate the data. So, here's that. It looks like a marble material next to those two, the hammered and the chiseled material blocks there. So yeah, I'm just kind of destroying the environment. If you look beyond that, you do kind of see
the original textures,
the original base textures.
Yeah. So this is the mode utilizing the new PBR supported textures.
Exactly. And they were very clear with me that they're eager to see what the modding community can do with all this. I mean, everything they've done here is just, it's for people to play with, but they can create their own materials and all kinds of stuff. It's very customizable as Minecraft. Okay, sorry for stammering around.
This is amazing.
This effect is really neat. I was starting to destroy the blocks, and I said, don't do that. I was like, okay, go into this room, go back here. And we have, essentially, this is the camera obscura effect.
Yeah, this is basically, you can explain it, John.
So you can see that small hole in the wall. It basically simulates the way light sort of goes. It's like the old pinhole camera effect as well. So, this is not something that would work without light being simulated correctly.
Yeah, you can see on the wall a projected image of a heart from the other room going through that little hole. And this was used by artists back in the day to, get images from the outside world and draw them, among other things. But you can see in this room, there's that heart, and it's all that light going through the pinhole, which allows you to see the projection. That's impossible in any game at all.
And that was something they discovered by accident, they told me, where they were just playing around with some settings and this happened.
Yeah, I mean...
And here also they show, of course, the way light blends together, which is something we tested in the map that you did, where you can see like the yellow there between where the red and the green meet.
Yeah.
The natural phenomenon of the colors combining correctly.
I was still astounded when they talked about it. I came over and I was like, "So,
look at the softness there, the shadow edge."
I know you're going to be getting so many soft edge shadows. Something that you can do it with ray trace shadows from rasterized lighting, but when you do it all through path tracing, it'll actually technically line up even better. Yeah.
Okay, I like that. It's like a water. It's like a glassy roof material with reflective water below it.
You can see just the varieties of different types of specular reflections you can get from that emissive material on the wall.
It really is amazing, though, how such a simplistic looking world design, all based on these chunks, your eyes just detect this as being somehow real, in a way, it looks like you're looking at a model of something.
Yeah.
But wow, and there's this super diffuse sort of concrete material around.
Where you can see you can see kind of everything bouncing through it and mixing together with colors as well. This one thing to make mention of, this demo level, much like the one I made, is completely amateur, I would say. This is programmer art, as they were very lovingly telling us. We were talking with Michael and Alex Dunn. I forget Michael's last name, sorry, by the way. Who we're going to talk to when this releases in full, whenever that may be, as well, in a form of an interview, much like I've done for many ray tracing titles. But there's so many things that are also still work in progress. So the Minecraft renderer is being rewritten in general because,
that's right.
They're going to be doing other things, I presume, with the game. Oh, and here, this is where John, I believe, is loading up.
Okay, so let's now we're loading up the more generic, the original tile set using the original textures, but with normal maps. And you can see I'm toggling ray tracing or path tracing on and off there.
Yeah, and there's so many effects in here that are...
This is something I love. The sort of like the light spilling in around the window frames
and that's just
there.
the skylight too. There's not direct sunlight. That's literally light from the sky and the outside from
which is something
random
that
objects.
they attempted to simulate in, what was that, Kingdom Come?
Kingdom Come,
but they faked it.
Yeah, they completely faked it.
But it was an extremely expensive effect as well.
Yeah.
But here it's actually happening naturally due to the way the light is simulated.
And it just looks so right.
I really like the normal maps actually on these original pixelated textures.
One thing that they did talk about is transparency is a natural systemic effect in this path traced version of Minecraft, where they can get transparency effects by just altering the color of the ray as it goes through it. So when it gets back into the camera or your character's eyes, you can see transparent naturally just by it affecting the color of things behind it.
Right.
Completely. Obviously, Minecraft has transparency and not transparency.
Okay. Look at the material here. The normal. It actually sort of, you get the effect of like metal
on wood.
Like a metal on the wood. There's like this metal.
That's amazing looking.
While the rest is like a more a more matte color surface.
The best part is you're seeing that even though it's like a 32 by 32 texture. It's even less. Like you're getting these effects even on something that's so low res, and your eye is expecting it. But here's another cool thing of bounce light from a variety of colors.
They're going down here. So
once again,
the light comes on,
turning on and off. This is super cool. This is probably using redstone, I'd imagine.
Perhaps, yeah.
Here's like one.
This is. Yes. Look at that.
Yeah.
A temporal artifact due to.
One thing to mention about temporal artifacts in this demo is, at the moment, like I said, they're rewriting the engine, and currently, the game is generating motion vectors, which are things that tell how opaque objects have moved and whatnot. But it is not handing them off to the path tracing at the moment. There's some things getting in the way because they're still working on it.
And here's an example of light scattering.
Oh my God!
And this is actually properly done.
Yeah, this is a real path traced effect, and they explained it to me. They are much like a lot of modern games right now, putting like a frustum aligned voxel grid in front of the camera, which will collect lighting, but usually that's done in a rasterized way, where it's sampling the rasterized lighting. But here, at each one of those, those voxels, they're actually sending out a ray to color it properly. So there's a lot of everything's
including like sort of, I guess,
path
the bloom effect you kind of see from this fire.
Yeah. So there's like that fog effect that you're seeing is actually, so like here it's colored by the sunlight.
Exactly, it's the sunlight streaming in.
It will also be colored by anything that is bouncing light or anything that it is emitting light as well. So it is. People could obviously say like whether they they like the effect at all, but it is actually physically simulated and done correctly, even more so than.
And that's something to address when talking about ray tracing or path tracing in general. Is the way a lot of these effects have existed in games for a long time.
So like this is like one of the. It's not handing off motion vectors correctly.
That's something that they're working.
Yeah.
They're working to fix. So that is indeed an issue, but. So, like, volumetric lighting and everything has been simulated. You did a wonderful video on this, Alex.
Yeah.
This is handled physically correctly modeled.
Yeah, and there's so many cool things here, like the indirect shadows from the sky.
The indirect lighting here is fantastic. This is what I feel sort of gives it such a. Look at the shadows. From
I love that. And turning it back on and off, the entire atmosphere of being kind of in this hold environment in the ground where light gradually diminishes. Completely disappears.
Water, the indirect lighting, I think, is key here. Like, that looks so realistic.
I know.
When it's, wow.
Yeah.
Despite being completely sort of the strange Minecraft visual design, but even with this simplistic texture set, it really does look realistic, I feel.
And there's actually one I kind of want to talk about it, but like, there's a lot of water here.
Also, see the reflections in the waterfalls.
Yeah, right.
We're looking down again. There's actually something interesting that will pop up once we start looking at that.
But we're seeing water right now. So one of the effects that they're working on for the future is caustics that will be coming from all transparencies, and it'll be a natural effect of it too. And they won't even have it just from transparencies. They told me that also caustic effects in the real world happen from rounded metallic surfaces as well.
That's right.
So a great caustic effect that you could imagine would be like metal on the side of a building reflecting light and hitting across the street.
We should probably explain why we're looking at this waterfall, though.
Oh yeah, this is cool.
So this is interesting. You'll notice as you get closer to it, detail is subtracted, and when you back up, detail is added. And you might be thinking, okay, that doesn't make sense. What's going on? Well, currently with the settings, they're still optimizing. They sort of have, I guess, whatever Minecraft calls the view distance set to 8 in terms of chunks that it draws, right? And that's from the player's point of view, so from the camera frustum, I guess you could say. But that also applies technically to behind you, the area that you cannot see. And because it's sort of tracing from your point of view there, when it's coming, the stuff behind you is also, that applies to as well.
Yeah,
even though you're not actually looking at it. So it's actually like a 360 degree, like it applies in all directions.
And so that's what you're seeing. You're not seeing the reflections disappearing because they're not rendering to that distance, but you're seeing the actual world in Minecraft like it usually does disappearing.
Exactly.
So there's a number of ways they optimize this, and they decide which things are actually going to be path traced. They obviously won't be necessarily path tracing the entire world always, only those things that they view relevant to keep it performant. And one of those things is they path trace everything that is captured in an area slightly larger than the viewing angle.
Yeah.
We'll show that later.
Just outside the view frustum. Yeah. Sort of like just a border outside the screen.
Just a border of it, and then there's a thing that also basically says we'll path trace things in a certain radius around the player as well. So you'll see errors from that too, and we'll definitely point them out where things disappear in and out of the view frustum,
which we'll see.
This is awesome.
This looks great.
Emissive lava. This is something I also did in my video because you just want to show off.
Yeah, the emissive materials in Minecraft are so perfect for demonstrating the natural phenomenon. Like, oh, and look at that. The rays sort of piercing through the vines there to give you that beautiful effect.
That's the one thing where I thought they're like definitely rasterizing it. But the technical only thing that is, I think, rasterization is there's a light G buffer that they use to kind of check stuff off of. And also, because that's the only practical way to do it, is the post-processing. So if they do add motion blur, if they do add depth of field, and the bloom itself and all the exposure settings are not actually a camera lens, like simulated, but it's normal the way games do post-processing technically.
That's right.
And here you're flying. There's some transparency shadows on the ground that you can see right there that are blue shadows. That's something also Sonic Ether's mod was not able to do.
That's right.
Because it has limited access to certain information. This is the developers going in, NVIDIA here.
The way the sky sort of reflects
Minecraft
off
team.
that texture.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like the last area.
So now this is an interesting one. Have they already been playing with in real time? Like, you have to talk about that, John. They used a controller.
We'll get there.
Oh, okay.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
That's coming up shortly.
It's just so cool.
So this is where, this
is the first time here you can see, due to the view frustum, things going in and out as being deemed relevant for the path tracing, you can see slightly the reflections disappearing.
Exactly. I noticed that at the time, and it's like,
Yeah, so it's limiting instead to the 360 kind of sphere around the player that will be path traced. This is not the same as screen space problems, but it's an artifact of the fact that they want to keep it performant at all times.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think it's much less distracting though than screen space reflections.
For screen space, they would all disappear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like
all the way. Oh yeah.
You can. That's like a really cool effect. Is you can see the specular reflection on the water, and also that thing underneath it too.
Exactly.
There's just so many amazing effects going on here. When I'm going to make a video on this, very much so in the style of my last one, where I'm going to test a couple of things like that happen in the real world and see how close we can get to them with this. I mean, this is all real time, and right now this footage is, I think, recorded at 1080p.
Yes, I think it was 1080p 60.
Yeah.
Current target. Now we're back to the beginning of this section. Like, we kind of cut out some loading here, but so this is an interesting, and there's a few issues. You're seeing the position of the sun change right now in real time.
And also the exposure
value is changing. What they did is they actually brought out a fun little controller that they have there, which they could essentially map different sort of like console variables to and sort of different values, and they could sort of tweak using knobs and buttons. Like you can say all surfaces should be glossy.
This is
or
what
all
it is right
surfaces
now.
should be matte. And you can change the exposure, you can change the sun position and everything in real time using these knobs. So it's just kind of a neat controller application to sort of fiddle with things rather than having to type them into the console. So now this is just madness. I'm flying, I'm going all over, sort of like just pushing the limits. You can sort of see the sort of the fog down there as well.
Yeah, like increasing how shiny everything is here, increasing how overexposed it is. That's why the sky's just a glowing mess.
And all the trees look very wet.
And I also think they can control the fog density as well. Is something they turn up later, maybe?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, like right here.
Right here.
The fog is.
Look at that.
So it blooms out like crazy when he turns it up. This is all happening naturally as a fallout of the fact that the game's path tracing. All these effects that you're seeing.
And you can see the pop in due to the current setting.
Yeah. This is
okay. Dropping back.
Ooh, that's kind of cool looking. Obviously, it's super yellowy because of the exposure and the bloom.
There we go.
There's
this area looks. This place is just fantastic. But this time everything is wet. It's very glossy.
Yeah, and you can see not only the occluded light, but under this thing over here, there's actually reflections from behind you.
That's right.
There's so much.
Okay, so
this is interesting.
The frame rate just dropped here, you might notice. So essentially they were increasing the number of rays being shot out in real time.
Yeah.
Which, effectively it does make the job a little bit easier for the denoiser. So you get a little bit less like graininess, I suppose. But as you can see, it had an impact on the performance here. Now we're back down to the original setting. I think they said they were shooting like 1 or 2 rays per pixel.
Yeah.
It's sort of variable.
I think, if I recall, it's 2. It at least has to be 2 per pixel. And I think then there's also additional rays for a variety of other things that it's doing, like the volumetrics from them and things like that. So it's 2 at least. I think it's at least 2 per pixel always.
Yeah, they were a little bit unclear about that.
Yeah.
They specifically said 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So
like 1 for the primary hit always, and I think But
we're messing with the settings here.
Messing with the settings. Time of day is obviously. So one other thing, much like Quake 2 RTX, if you were to rapidly move the sun in this game, it would also have a negative impact on performance because there's less data able to be used over from previous frames. So it has to generate more of it in real time.
You notice how there's the mirror-like reflection on the water itself, but the reflections on the dirt there, it's still very wet looking, but they're much more diffuse as a result.
Yeah, like water and metals basically have little to no diffuse color.
Exactly.
So they would otherwise be like just black, usually as they're represented in rendering.
These waterfalls look a little strange just due to the blocky nature of the placement.
Yeah, it's so funny. Minecraft is abstract, yet when it has these extremely realistic effects, it is a bit,
it's
uncanny.
interesting. This will be fun to play with.
Yeah, I think when I play the game, I'm going to be using the PBR pack that they release.
Oh, so here we go. I decided to jump into the settings here and actually increase the render distance from 8 to 16 chunks. Keep in mind that what we're looking at here, this is not final. They were very clear that this does not work quite well yet. They are working on this.
Yeah, so it's
rendering. We can't really take anything from this, so it improved the reflection, but as you can see, it sort of just completely breaks, and that's because we were using NVIDIA Share to record this, but what was actually happening was just the frame rate tanking, and the reason is like the BVH structure actually covers everything under the surface, above, in all the directions, and it's just killing the CPU basically.
Yeah, so part of ray tracing, the way it's done through DirectX right now, is that it builds a structure that these rays are shot through, and that's usually that's the game geometry.
Yes.
And part of that is rebuilding this structure every frame, or even just having it laying around and refitting it every frame. And if you have too many things in it, based upon the game type, it'll just slow down the CPU. So the reason why that was running slow is because the CPU actually, and this is a really kitted out gaming machine, by the way.
Exactly. So It just shows you the performance impact this can have.
Yeah, ray tracing is not only intensive on the GPU, it requires so many more draw calls and the refitting and restructuring of this BVH thing, which is actually what is being path traced through. Yeah, that's just amazing looking. The difference.
It's just crazy to look at, yeah. And again, just for, what we're messing with here is kind of like outside the scope of the demo.
Yeah.
They just kind of let me go nuts with it. So
yeah,
we're kind of like pushing at the seams of an unfinished demo. So we're kind of just intentionally breaking things here. It's neat to sort of experiment with, and you can kind of see where they're at.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. I think I finally pull out an emissive material. Yeah, a glowstone. So now, equipping this, then I can actually start placing emissive blocks anywhere I want, basically.
Yeah,
So here we go.
It's just like totally overwhelms the exposure and bloom, and they turn it down
right down
because you can't see it.
We joked that he was acting as sort of my dynamic exposure, like in real time.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, because this is creating so many different shadows.
Yep.
All like that. Yeah, just wow.
And you can see all the reflections there correctly in the icy material.
This is going to be like, I mean, I really loved Sonic Ether's mod. I was so happy to have played that and found it and talk about it. But in all honesty, the way this is working, because they have direct control and, access to the engine, this is going to end up being more physically correct and just more total in general when it does come out. And they've only been working on it now for 4 months,
4
right?
months, yeah.
Basically since April. I don't want to talk about coincidences, but, our video did come out at the end of April,
Oh, look at this. I love that emissive lava.
Yeah, and affecting the normal
and then
maps.
the normals, yeah. And the
so, like,
bricks,
one thing you can see on the
beautiful.
edge of the screen, like, it's kind of messing up a little bit on the edge of the screen. Once again, they don't have proper motion vectors for everything. So, when they do have that in, a lot of the problems that happen with screen motion will be going away because they can actually reproject the data more accurately.
Look at that.
Yeah, right. And there, there's a lot of things that they still have to do on the engine side anyways. They're going to be moving the game over to, I believe, a clustered forward setup, as they mentioned, so that they can leverage that more and also, just make the game run faster in general.
So, I mean, I think that's kind of enough for now. I mean, the takeaway here is that essentially this is just a much more robust implementation of what we saw in Sonic Ether's Path Trace mod.
Yeah.
And obviously they just have more direct access to the code base here. They can play around with it, and they're really pushing some interesting boundaries here.
Yeah.
Although this part, real quick, is kind of fun because it's, again, we dive underground. Oh yeah, look at this.
Yeah. And here they're turning on and off things like the denoiser.
Yep, so that was the denoiser. That was just the rays coming in base. Oh.
Wow. This is an interesting...
and now it's being denoised, and that's just...
without any of the textures on them. And this looks to be some sort of stenciling.
Yeah,
I don't know what that is
strange.
Exactly. I don't know what that is.
You can see the normals
This
there.
looks like specularity.
Specularity, yeah.
This one looks like a scene from The Matrix, honestly.
That's pretty neat.
There's so many really interesting screen effects and effects in general that can now come about that things like ray tracing or path tracing can be done. There's a lot of things that, even as post-processing exists, that could probably be done with ray tracing or path tracing, which will even look
wow, this is really... This
trippy.
specifics, that really pushes the denoiser to the limit, though.
Yeah, it's just like completely breaking when they turn on and off these things. I don't know what this one is.
Yeah, what is that?
I don't
Besides
know.
Matrix View.
That
was like the broken motion vectors.
This one is just a whole bunch of weird effects that they can turn on and off, which is basically them showing to us how the path tracer, separates things, identifies noise.
And when you put all those things together, you get this.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
As you're looking over
But I
the
think
sun.
that's probably going to do it for this crazy little video. We're just kind of rambling because it's exciting, darn it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited. I loved Sonic Ether's mod. This is going to be a next level thing that'll decidedly run better because it has, hardware acceleration, and that's a really great thing. And I just can't wait to get hands on.
I feel like once this becomes available, we should have some sort of like building competition.
Oh, totally.
Like I'll build something, you build something, and then we kind of explore each other's worlds. And
I'm gonna love that.
That could be fun. Let us know if you want to see something like that.
Yeah.
Like Alex and I face off in a building contest and ray trace Minecraft.
Build the most ray tracing
I don't know.
excessive thing
This is the
ever.
first time I really feel like interested in playing Minecraft, to be honest, in quite some time. Just to mess around with ray tracing.
Yeah, I know. Can't wait.
So. But yeah, so thanks for joining me, Alex.
Yeah, of course, John, always.
And if you enjoyed this video, as always, be sure to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell.
Oh, yeah.
And follow us both on Twitter to discuss ray tracing or path tracing or anything awesome.
Or Minecraft.
Or Minecraft, a little bit.
I know, by the way, it's not called a zombie, it's called a creeper.
It's a creeper. You're a hardcore Minecrafter.
Oh, of course.
All right, well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
And until next time, this is John and Alex signing off.